Namaste, Sitaram everyone. This is Acharya Ganesh Jarunath. Today I'd like to discuss with you the solar eclipse that is coming up on April 8th, 2024. That is Monday, and here in Florida, it will be at least partially visible, um, depending on where you're at. And in the United States, in various regions, from on the East Coast, going a little towards center, should the eclipse will be visible. So during this time, there's a lot of people, at least from a spiritual and religious standpoint, wanting to know what are the do's and don'ts. And so quickly go over some of the do's and don'ts, just so you are able to observe the day in a way that that is meaningful and best suited according to our scriptures, our traditions and practices. And so let me start with the don'ts. And this one goes for everyone. Please don't look directly at the solar eclipse. All right, it can damage your eyes very badly, especially over time. And so unless you are doing scientific research and things like that and have the protective eyewear, there's specific glasses that are made to look at the eclipse. They have a special filter on it. If you don't have those, then you should not look at the eclipse, and please prevent your children and others that may be vulnerable from looking at the eclipse. And on the religious and spiritual side as well, it is also recommended not to engage in looking at the eclipse once you know that it is occurring. For that specific reason, and for on the religious side, according to our scriptures, that during the eclipse it is considered the environment, the air, the vibrations are considered polluted. And so because of this pollution of what's happening, negative energy and negative effects of the eclipse, our rishis and munis, our scriptures, and our saints and sages have organized some of the key do's and don'ts, and by adhering to this, it can help not only keep you safe, but also benefit you spiritually. And so bear with me, and I'll go through first the don'ts, and then we'll go through some of the do's, and hopefully it is something that you will benefit from. So first of all, on a individual note, you want to try to avoid cutting your hair, nails, shaving during the time of the eclipse. If you're able to avoid using the bathroom altogether, that would be very good. But obviously, if you are not able to, then that is fine. But we try to avoid those things as much as possible. You also don't want to bathe during the eclipse period. Eating, drinking, cooking, all of that is prohibited during the time of the eclipse. So try to avoid eating, drinking anything, cooking at that time, and maintaining celibacy during the time of the eclipse. No type of ceremonies should be done. That includes marriage, engagements, pujas, housewarming, mundan sanskars, any type of sanskars for that matter, any type of pujas should not be done during the eclipse time. It is considered inauspicious and impure at that time. And so one should avoid sleeping during the eclipse as well. And so these are the main don'ts, right? So during the eclipse, if you can not do these things, meaning again, don't look at the eclipse, don't cut your hair, your nails, shave, bathe during the time of the eclipse, eating, drinking, cooking, all of that is prohibited during this time, during the time of the actual eclipse. And no special ceremonies should be done or pujas at that time, and no sleeping during the time of the eclipse. You should not enter a temple during the time of the eclipse. Now let me clarify that a little bit, because many temples today are not just the sanctuary, it's not just the worship area. The temples also have multi-purpose halls and other parts to it. That is okay. If you are at the temple and you are having to be, and that's the only place you can be indoors, then that is fine. But you should avoid going into the sanctuary or worship part of the temple and doing any type of murti puja, murti, touching the murtis, making offering to murtis, bathing the murtis. This is prohibited during this time, during the time of the eclipse. Now, knowing the don'ts, the do's become fairly simple. It's just the opposite. So the do's. First of all, you should try to take a bath before the eclipse, if you're able to. So before the eclipse, at least an hour or two before, take a bath. And also after the eclipse, you should take a bath. If you're able to cook before the eclipse, at least a couple hours before the eclipse, that's highly recommended that you cook. And inside of each container of food, you put tulsi leaf. And then leave the food alone until after the eclipse. If you have the ability to eat before the eclipse, at least an hour or two before the eclipse, then that is fine. Now, the food that you cook and eat should be light. It should be vegetarian-based food. If you don't have the ability to do any of this beforehand, then you should wait till after the eclipse to cook, to eat, and so on. It is recommended before the eclipse to also drink some water and avoid drinking water during the duration of the eclipse. There's an exception here, obviously, for those ladies that may be pregnant, anybody that is sick or suffering from any type of ailment, young babies, young children that need food in a certain schedule. These are exceptions, but however best that can be avoided is also beneficial. Also, some do's is highly recommended that you do chanting during this time. Doing jap, you can use your mala and do chanting, or if you don't have the mala or know how to use it for chanting, then simply sitting and chanting, repeating the mantras or the name of God, singing kirtan. These are all very good. Meditation is very good. Again, you avoid doing pujas, especially murti puja and any type of ceremonies, but chanting, meditation, this is highly recommended, especially for Surya Devata. At the end, towards the end of the video, I'll give you a couple mantras that you can use to chant during this period of time. Another do is what you want to well, this may fall under the don't section, but try to avoid going into your altar room at this time. Remember, your altar is like a mini temple, right, in your home. So keep it closed, and whatever you do, you can do from the outside. Chanting and so on can be done. You also want to make sure, as best as you can, these things are done indoors, not outdoors. Okay? And definitely stay awake during this period of time. The duration after the solar eclipse is done, then you can start getting back to regular routine. However, there's exception to that when it comes to temple. Mandirs technically should not reopen. First of all, during the eclipse, they should be closed. So at least an hour to 30 minutes before the eclipse is occurring, temples should be closed. The doors should be closed, and nobody should be entering or going in. Temples should technically reopen only after 12 hours duration after the solar eclipse and 9 hours after a lunar eclipse. Now, this may vary from temple to temple depending on their guidance and depending on the magnitude of the visibility of the eclipse. So the temple and the leaders will make the particular decisions there. However, generally, temples should remain closed for at least 12 hours during after a solar eclipse, and at least 9 hours after a lunar eclipse. So lastly, as I promised, the mantra that you can chant, or mantras that you can chant for during the chanting and meditation during the solar eclipse. It's highly recommended for Surya Devata, but any deity that you like, you can also include. And again, chanting, meditation, singing, reading from your scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, or any other scripture, also highly recommended. And so one mantra, very simple mantra, Om Suryaya Namaha. You can use your mala and chant that over and over. You could sing that as well. Another mantra, Om Grhani Suryaya Namah. Again, I'll repeat that one. Om Grhani Suryaya Namah. And another mantra, Om Bhaskaraya Namah. Right? So these are mantras that you can chant. You can chant all of them, all three of them. You can chant just one over and over. And this will be very beneficial for each and every one of you. Hari Om, Namaste. I hope this video is helpful to you, and thank you for listening.